All right, last guess, and then I'm gonna go watch the game. Hopefully it doesn't load up. Hello,
Yo, what's up?
what's up, bro?
Nah, I'm chilling.
Are you Christian?
No, I'm not Christian. Used to be, but kind of overthought the whole thing, I suppose.
I don't think you could overthink Christianity. Would you overthink? What questions did you have that you felt like didn't get answered?
Well, most I don't know about didn't get answered. They did get answered, but the answers just unfortunately were not like sufficient.
What were the
One
answers?
of them would be like the implication for the people that do make it to heaven.
What about them?
So whenever I want to make a decision, I usually like consider implications and stuff, right? So for every believer that gets to heaven, there is a couple 100 million non-believers that don't. So for it to be real, for it to actually be a thing, there's a vast disparity of people that actually won't get the good side of it. You know?
I'm confused as to what the problem is.
How do you not see the problem with that? I can't like justify millions of people just having to eternally suffer. Trying to make sure my words are okay for TikTok. Just for me to enjoy
It's not. They
with
don't suffer so that you can enjoy something.
well,
You
to a
know
degree
what?
they do, right? Because
No,
you can't have
to
heaven
no degree
without
they don't.
hell.
What? No, you
You can't
can
have
you can
one
have
without the
heaven
other,
without
right?
hell, bro.
But we don't. Like we don't. Like according to the ethos, that's not what it is. It's that
So
there is heaven.
what hell is like what you experience, your state of being when you choose that you don't like God. So it's like you're experiencing God, but you don't like that. So when you're in the presence of God, you're experiencing something that's tormentorous to you. But me, who've aligned their will with God, when I experience God, it's a pleasurable thing for me. So like,
Okay, so the torment isn't like described with the gnashing of teeth and the flesh and
well, it's a
whatnot being burned and
so it's like I mean, you don't know me, right? But like, say for instance, like if your mom or something came up and gave you a hug and you're in good relationship with your mom, that's a pleasurable experience for you. But then for some reason you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you don't want to be touched, right? And your mom comes and gives you the same love that she gave you the day before. It's gonna feel like she's smothering you and giving you something that you don't desire. And it's not that the
oh, I
love,
see it.
yeah, it's not that the love that your mom is giving you has changed, but your disposition towards this affection or towards her has changed. So now that when you're
But how
experiencing
does
that
that?
same love, you don't like it. That's what hell is.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I haven't heard that approach before. I can say that.
That's like what's
But
taught
how
in the
would that
church.
depends on the church, right? Like that's
I
no
mean,
that
like,
was
yeah,
taught that
so
was
like
supposed to.
the thing is that like the popular Christianity, especially in America, they kind of have divorced themselves from the traditions of the church. So that which was handed down from like Jesus and his apostles. So we don't really read into what early Christianity believed, and we kind of like take our own interpretations and things like that, which was never supposed to be a thing. Like even in Protestantism, like they always quoted church
So you're
fathers
not
early on.
Protestant.
You said what?
You're not Protestant.
I am Protestant right now, but I hold a high reverence for the early church. Like I could
That's
walk into a
awesome.
Christian bookstore and not find one church father, which is problematic. But this is what the church is taught about hell. Like this is what they were taught from the apostles themselves.
Right, but from your like, I guess not yours. So this is what they're teaching from before. How does that affect like the younger people that didn't necessarily accept or reject? They're more indifferent, right? So I don't know what cutoff age that you believe that they actually start getting judged. Some people say 12. I don't know where they're getting that from. But what about like the people that lose their lives at a young age? And then they get to go to one of the two places. How is that determined for them? Like, because they didn't actively choose to or not to. At that point, all they care about is video games, art, girls. Why do they get to, spend eternity for like 13, 14 years on the earth? with this section that obviously is not as good as the other section? Why is that the case for them?
Yeah, no. So for them, there's a lot of church fathers that like speak about this, especially people who have early death, specifically infants too, um, that like speak about this. So in regards to as to like where they go, it's going like there's different factors, but like there's a popular view that they like get to experience heaven because they haven't reached a specific age, especially if they were able to be baptized. But God's grace is able to extend out to them. Um, like who never had like never rejected God.
Yeah, because that's my thing. Like, I like the phrasing, like the never rejected God, because some people I speak to, they always use the, well, everyone gets an opportunity, but depending on the state in your life, the opportunity may not be clearly like pronounced. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure how to enunciate that.
yeah, and
But
I think that like even the questions that you're asking is coming from a place where you feel like or you don't really trust that God is fair. And
yeah,
the thing that the Bible does preach is that he is just, he is fair. So everyone gets a fair shot. Like if you didn't get a like you didn't get a chance, even if you're like 80 years old and you never heard Christianity, like you're not just gonna get sent to hell. That's not what we believe.
okay, so there is some other form of judgment for these people. We just don't know what that is.
No, like you're judged according to what you know. So like you're judged according to the way in which you lived according to like the natural law, like being good, or like just trying to do good unto others and stuff like that. You're judged according to that because you didn't know the gospel, right? So
Okay, but that kind of falls apart for me, like in my head. Like, if you didn't know and you were, pretty good, pretty pious person. I don't know if you use pious or someone that's not religious, but you didn't know, right? So you're judged on your merits. But then let's say that you now know. So it's no more your merits, because that's not important anymore. It's whether or not you accepted it. Doesn't that just actually hook you as opposed to helping you?
like say for instance you're sick, right? And you don't really know that you're dying. So you just like kind of like live out your life. But now like all of a sudden one day somebody tells you like, "Hey bro, you're dying and here's the cure." Now you have the ability to accept the cure or not. Now you're like your death is now dependent upon you because now you have knowledge of the way in which you cannot die. That's up to you. So that's what the gospel is. It's a way for you to not die. It's the cure. And so that you're not cooked. You're actually saved. When you're presented
But
with the gospel, you have a way to be
I don't
saved.
know.
It's up
That
to
kind
you.
of sounds a little bit contradictory. Don't mean to be like combative here, but if you're like, how are you dying if you're gonna be judged differently? Like, if you're a good person, maybe not good according to Christian standards, but you're a good person, right? You've done a bunch of stuff that young people do, so you've quote unquote sinned, and technically you are damned, but you don't know that. But according to what you said, like, there's a different metric to judge them. So maybe they're not damned. But now you coming to tell them that, doesn't that just make them damned? This is like Schrodinger's damned. I don't know. Like, them
No,
knowing about it basically ruins their chance of actually making it through, because I can't imagine someone that's 70 that's lived their whole life not religious accepting religion on just like a trust me basis. So
well,
how is it their fault for
Christianity
accepting
isn't
it?
Christianity isn't just a trust me basis. It's backed by evidence. But in regards to Christianity, right? No, it's the relationship that you're able to have with God. So like the more that you align your will towards God, one, the better that you're going to be, and like the things that you're able to experience after death is going to be better as well. Now, in regards to them truly being ignorant and not knowing, like genuinely, God can extend his grace to those people. But for those who accept his grace and align their will towards him, their experience when they're in the presence of God is different. Um, so no, it's not damning them, and it's actually inviting them into a life that they were created to like live.
Well, I can see how you, as a Christian yourself, would believe that. I'm not sure how much time you have. In terms of like evidence of Christianity, like, what do you mean by there's evidence of Christianity? Is it evidence of Jesus? Is it evidence of Christianity as a whole? Like, well, I guess Christianity is just Jesus, but is it evidence of the entire like biblical accounts? What do you mean when you say it's evidence of Christianity?
I mean that there are things that make Christianity more probable to be true than anything else. So for Christianity, you have like the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. If Jesus Christ rose from the dead, then Christianity is true. This is a historical claim. We could look at the historical evidence around his death and his resurrection, and I think that there's more than enough evidence to conclude that Jesus Christ actually rose from the dead. You could look at like logical and philosophical arguments to show that the God that exists has to be like multi-personal. If it's a unipersonal God, then like it's not going to be the God that we could actually conclude. It's not going to actually be like a purely actual being. Um, and
Right.
then like you just have the arguments for the existence of God itself. So like I think all of these is going to point to evidence that Christianity is going to have to be the religion that's true.
Like evidence for the unaliving of him, possibly. Well, not possibly, like more than likely. But the resurrection evidence, if it was like conclusive, there wouldn't be debates on it till today, right? Like it would be
That's
pretty
not true.
clear. Like as we know
It's pretty
that
clear that the
Jesus
earth
didn't
is
live.
round. It's pretty clear that the earth is round. People still have debates about it. People debate about
Well,
everything.
okay, that's a fair point. But this is like a once in the entire history of the world event of someone passing away, being put in a grave. I don't know what words I can use,
Mm-hmm.
and then coming out multiple days later.
Yeah.
And this happened at the time where like recording history was not as good as it is now. And then he choosing to show up like at that specific point after billions of years of existence on the planet, choosing then to then interact and then perform the biggest miracle ever, and then not having any way of that being recorded to be factual. Like we know of like lesser events in great detail, but not that one,
We know
you
about
know?
this event in great detail.
Well, based on different people's accounts that weren't even there. Like the people that wrote about these things weren't even there when it
Where do
happened.
you get that from? I have no idea where you got that from.
Well, the authors of the Bible aren't like the actual apostles themselves.
Yes, they are.
So all the scholars are incorrect about this. Like when they
There's
mention that the Bible was written like what 30, at least like one of the Gospels is at least 30 years after like
well, there's
the
actually a
disciples
lot
of
of there's a lot of scholars that actually literally go to show that the people whose names is on them are the ones who wrote them, and there's a lot of evidence that goes to support that. So the people who say that the Gospels are anonymous, they're what's called textual critics, right? So they're only looking at the text and saying that the author's name is not written within the text. So then there's nobody in the text itself saying I wrote this. So then they declare it anonymous. By that standard, though, there's many works who we know who wrote it that are anonymous. The way in which we know the works, especially during the period of antiquity, is going to be predominantly by outside attestation. So it's somebody else attesting, as well as manuscript evidence. The manuscript evidence for the Gospels. Every single time that you get the body of work of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, it's attributed to the correct author. That's not what you would expect if it was circulating anonymously. People would have put God knows how many names on it. But every single time we find a manuscript, it has the correct name to the correct manuscript. Secondly, the outside attestation is unanimous as well. Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke, John wrote John. This outside attestation comes from the disciples of the apostles themselves who attest for this. Also, another thing that you get in the second century is that people were claiming that these works were from popular apostles like Peter, like Thomas, right? But what you see in the Gospels, which attest that they're actually talking about the actual authors who wrote these things, is that they're listing the people who aren't as popular. Like Mark was the interpreter of Peter. It could have been a lot easier to say that this is the Gospel of Peter, but instead they list this guy Mark, who isn't as well known. The same for Luke, who was a companion of Paul. It would have been easy to say that this is the Gospel of Paul, but instead they keep it true to the author and say that this is the Gospel account according to Luke. Matthew is the tax collector who writes his Gospel, and John is the beloved disciple. And he says in his Gospel that he is the disciple that writes these things. So we know
Let's
exactly
okay.
who wrote these things.
Let's use this, like using this particular angle of looking at it, because I still disagree with the fact that it is the apostles that are writing it, but let's use that, like let's just assume this to be true. When did they write this? Did they write this as it was happening, they were noting it down? Did they write it after everything had occurred? When would they have written this?
They write it after. I would
Okay.
argue that the Gospels are written between like 30 and 70 AD.
Right. Okay. And then they're just recollecting every conversation they had with Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know if you've looked into oral traditions, but the memory that goes on in oral traditions that weren't as literary, they were able to recount full stories about 30 minutes to an hour long, word for word, after
No,
listening to
absolutely.
it one time.
Like it can get quite deep, especially if you like look into like how the Quran actually became written. There was a lot of oral tradition there, but these gospels didn't need to be passed down like through oral tradition. These people were more or less random people that Jesus just put together as his disciples, right? He chose them specifically. There's no way that every single one of them has the best memory at the time. Because again, for oral tradition, it's not everyone is remembering it, right? You have the people that actually can do that. They practice that over many decades. These people had one-off conversations with Jesus, and then maybe 10, 20 years later, they recount exactly that conversation they had with Jesus.
Yeah, so the
How are they doing
conversations
this?
the conversations that Jesus has with the disciples, you get a couple of those conversations. The other conversations that Jesus has are going to be like sermons. A lot of these things Jesus is preaching numerous times. Like you gotta like remember that Jesus is preaching for 3 years, so he's going to certain sections and he's giving the same sermon over. So like the disciples are able to learn these sermons literally word for word, and then they go out and they tell these sermons, these stories, these parables literally word for word. That's not going to be problematic.
Hmm. All right. I don't want to stress that point a lot because I have another one, which is more on Paul. Like
Okay.
Paul is a big question mark for me.
Okay.
So Jesus spends many years with 12 people,
Hmm.
teaching them, preparing them, and sending them out into the world. And then after he, goes to glory, the stuff he's supposed to do, right, ascends and everything, he then decides, you know what? This guy is actually the one that's going to carry 80% of the load of spreading the gospel rather than the actual like apostles themselves. Like, why I guess this wouldn't be a question, maybe just as an idea that you have, but why do you think that happened? Like, why is Paul one of the most well-known over the other apostles? Like, I think I know five apostles off the top of my head, not all 12, but I know Paul for sure.
Hmm.
Most of the New Testament is Paul.
Hmm.
Like, why do you think that is? Like, do you? Because I'm thinking, just to lay my own ideas, that it was a major psyop on Paul's end, like changing certain things, adding his own interpretations on certain things
Hmm.
that doesn't actually align. Like, one of them would be his recommendation on men actually staying away from marriage if possible. But if you have like, if you can't beat lust, then get married. But more like he would recommend that you don't get married. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
Yeah, so the reason as to why like Paul would be such a big figure and why God would choose Paul is to show the beauty and the glory of the gospel. Because Paul is this sinner, especially to the Christians who went around unaliving Christians. And what God does through Paul is to show the transformative work of the gift of the gospel. So now through Paul, people are able to see one, that your sins have been atoned for and you can be redeemed, and two, that the Gentiles are also able to be saved. through Paul, we're able to see that through Israel, because he's from the tribe of Benjamin, that salvation is now offered to all. And he does this in a way of showing his salvation through what Israel really represents, which is this nation with blood on their hands, who denied their Lord, who crucified their Messiah. But now through him, watch as he proclaims the gospel and the acceptance that he has through Christ. The disciples didn't go and crucify their Lord, right? But Paul does. And now through Paul, and this is why Jesus says, I'm going to show the Gentiles, my name is going to be made through him. He's going to shine his light through Paul. So that's the reason, is like the glory of the gospel now being represented to all of us through this sinful man, such as Paul, this one who was less, who didn't seem worthy or deem himself worthy. Now we're able to look at Paul and say, man, I was like Saul, where I didn't take heed to Christ's words. I didn't recognize the goodness of God. And now let me take heed to his message and watch how God transforms me. And that's
Okay,
Paul's
so
whole
Paul is
mission.
an example.
You said
Paul is
what?
an example, I guess, an extreme example of the transformative nature of what Jesus can do
Mm-hmm.
to a person or nation, rather. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna ponder that. And then what I failed to mention earlier when I was talking about the implications, which is one of the things that, like, I can't justify, I guess, but I'm not God, so I don't need to. Um, Before the resurrection, like before salvation was like a thing that people had, there was multiple, like multitudes, maybe billions even, I wouldn't know, people
That
around the
died.
world at the time that, yeah, exactly, that had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to them? What about the ones that actually were, maybe not entirely good? They did some messed up stuff when they were younger, but they grew up and they changed and they got better.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what happens to them? Like, how does that work? What about the people that were even alive during when he was alive, but just not in the same nation or continent that he was to
Mm-hmm.
even know of that message? Like, what happens to those people?
Yeah, so death used to be this thing in which we were kind of separated from God. And those people who died before Christ's death and resurrection, they went to this place called the realm of the dead, Hades, whatever you want to call it, right? There's many different names to describe, but they have a whole like philosophy on what happens to the people after they die. So they went to this place that was the realm of the dead, which was where like it was kind of separated from God, right? When Christ dies, he goes to this realm, proclaims the gospel, and freed those whom death held captive. Because remember, Christ is defeating death. So now that which death held captive, they are free. And now that's why Paul says, and the psalm says as well, "Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting?" Because when the Son of God touches death, he transforms death. The same way when he touches our nature, he transforms our nature. So now through death, what Paul says is to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I am no longer in a place that is separated from God, but I can be united unto God because of the work that Christ does on the cross. So all those who came before, they were in the realm of the dead. Christ frees them at the point of his death and his resurrection, and then they are now united to God, and now we can also participate in that uniting.
So they got a get out of jail free card, basically. Damn, that's kind of wild.
No, you have
Because
to.
at this
So
point,
there's two places. If you read like the Gospel of Luke, you'll read about like Abraham's bosom. So Abraham's bosom was a
yeah, that's
place
the
in
one.
Abraham's bosom was a
Yeah.
place in the realm of the dead in which the righteous went. Right. So and
Yep.
then you have the place where the wicked went, where they did not desire God at all. So those who were righteous, obviously, when they hear the gospel, they heed the message and then they believe. Those who are wicked, their wills are fixed at the point of death, and they stray away from Christ. Those who are like invincibly ignorant, they're given a grace to actually hear the gospel and then believe.
I see. And then the final point that I have is just in terms of the age of the religion, like Christianity as a whole.
Hmm.
It's not it's not as old as I would expect it to be. And there are other religions that predated by thousands of years, and they had their own ethos and all that stuff. those people that believe those ones or still do up till this time, like before, the whole salvation thing happened, they still get the stem opportunity you're talking about. Like they would be the ignorant ones, or would they be in the
Yeah, they would be
like
they would be the
whatever?
ignorant ones. Yes,
So they're just ignorant, and then okay, oh, that
like
happens, and
invincibly
then
ignorant. They like there was no way that they could have known any better, especially because Israel wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So there was no way that they could have known better. So they're definitely given grace.
I see. And I guess I said finally before, but this is the actual finally, which is the whole concept of us having to go through this for many, many years before the actual plan is like done in fruition. My thought is, let's say Adam and Eve happened. I don't know if you believe if they're like literal people or it's metaphorical. So this might determine
I believe that they're literal people.
literal.
Yeah,
Okay, literal people. Right. So Adam and Eve, they make a mistake, or I guess they disobey, which is a mistake, but they didn't know at the time. But they disobey, and instead of just resetting or just ending it there, it's allowed to play out to the point that now billions are going to suffer. You don't consider it suffering, you just consider it a different type of feeling of God's love, but I still consider it suffering. The billions are going to suffer when it could have just been two, or the two could have just ended. And we know that he is willing to end like multiple people at once because of the flood narrative. Like he just decided, heck, reset, send 8 people, repopulate. Why not just reset with the two and then avoid the billions of people that are going to have the stick and not the carrot? Why let it play out this long? And those people are basically eternally, there is no indication or implication that at some point it'll end at any, no, eternally, which is incredibly insane. But why not just reset it? Why let it play out?
all right. So this is a deep answer. Please don't mind if I give you like a longer response. Is that okay?
Preach to me, man. It's all good.
All right. So the reason as to like why things don't just reset is because one, it's like a bad thing for the image of God to cease to exist. So Adam and Eve, who were created in the image of God, it's a bad thing for the image of God to stop existing. If that's what you mean by reset, that's a bad thing. So what God does is he upholds his word and also provides his mercy and his grace. And that's what's shown in allowing them to live on. So he preserves his word in saying that the day you eat of this tree, you will surely die. God's word is going to be upheld. But then he shows us his mercy and his grace with what he decides to do with this image of God and how he's going to save them. So he allows them to live on so that the grace of salvation is able to be shown through them. And God shows how the temptation, because if he just resets, he just shows that pretty much, oh, the temptation of the devil is able to like damage God's work and there's nothing that God can do. All he could do is start over. That's not what God does. He says that what you intended for harm, God can use for my good. So even through the temptation of the devil, watch how I bring salvation through the evil in which you intended. So God gives a promise to Eve, or through the serpent, he gives a promise to Eve, saying that there's a child that's going to come forth from the woman that is going to crush the head of the seed of the serpent, right? Which is sin and death. So he makes a way in which sin and death is going to be atoned for. Now it's better for the image of God to continue to exist and not to cease to exist, and for our sins to be atoned for and for us to be united back unto God rather than God just restarting. Now, for the other thing that you're talking about, if by restart you mean just, hey, just forgive their sin, then you have to remember that it's not a problem of just a transgressing of the law. That's the problem, but it's the damaging of their nature. It's that through them eating of the tree, they learn the fruits of disobedience. Now, if it was just a problem of transgressing the law, then yeah, he could have forgiven them. But it was the fact that their nature was damaged. So the image of God needs to be restored. But there's no one who can restore the image of God except God himself. So God says, hey, this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to become man. That's what's going to take place with the seed of the woman giving birth. That's going to crush the head of the serpent. I'm going to become man because whatever God touches, he restores. So he gives us the outline of the incarnation and our salvation, and he gives a promise. So now all the generations that come after Adam and Eve can trust in a God that gave a promise even after they sin. So you get so much more good out of God preserving the life of Adam and Eve and giving this promise and keeping that promise, which is why he tells Moses, hey, Moses goes before God and says, hey, you made a promise to Abraham. And God shows that he's the God that remembers his promises. He remembers his covenants. He's showing us the character of him. If you just restart, there's no actual relationship building. There's no understanding the character of God. So now we're able to look back and say, hey, this is a God that keeps his promises. I can trust him. Even in the midst of my sin, he still heard me and protected me while I was in the garden trying to hide from him. Right? It shows us those things about the character of God, who he is, and things like that. So that would be why he doesn't restart in regards to just forgiving. I gave the answer for that as well.
Right. Okay. So that works. Like, if there's this one flaw that's in my mind from what you just mentioned. So the act of disobedience basically damaged their nature. So for Eve, I can understand. She was deceived. So the serpent came, deceived Eve, and then she did it. But Adam himself, he was the one that was given the rule, and he disobeyed. But the act of disobedience happened by him, like without any outside influence. He did it himself, meaning that it was already part of him to be able to do that. It was already in his nature to disobey. And
No,
also,
so it's
he
not.
wouldn't even know.
So that's incorrect. It's not in his nature to disobey. It is in his nature to choose that which is good, right? He decided to
But
reject
he
the
doesn't
good.
know what's good.
He
Like the
knows
tree
no,
is
no,
the
no.
tree of knowledge of good and evil. He
Yeah.
doesn't know like the way we know, right? Because we know because he ate it.
No, 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 no. Okay. So the tree of knowledge of good and evil is not like oh, uh they don't know what good and evil is before they eat of it. That's not what that is. The tree of knowledge like is good itself. Like the tree is not like this poisonous thing. It's not inherently bad. Like everything that God made is very good. When it says that like the tree is called the knowledge of good and evil, it's because like from the tree you eat of the fruit of disobedience. You disobey God's command. So it's called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil on the supposition that like man would eat of his fruit after the prohibition, and then within it there's this violation of the command. So because of this violation, you now know evil, which is going against the good. So they were supposed to know like evil through their knowledge of the good, because when you know that which is good, you understand the deprivation of that which is good. But now they know evil through the experience of disobedience, and they were never supposed to know evil through the experience of disobedience. They were supposed to know evil through their experience of good, having knowledge of that which is good, and then you can understand its deprivation. Just like how you are alive, you understand what it is to be alive, and through your understanding of life, you now have a concept of death and what it means to not have life, right? The deprivation of that. So the deprivation of good is evil, or the privation of good is evil. They were supposed to learn evil through their contemplation of God or the contemplation of the good, and then learn that apart from God, there is evil. But instead, they decide to learn it through experience by taking the fruit of disobedience. And then them learning through experience brings about the suffering that they now endure. So it's not that they just don't have knowledge of good and evil. That's
Okay.
not what it is.
Right, but the thing is, like, the Bible kind of implies that they actually are somewhat unaware of things, especially when it mentions that they now became aware that they were naked and they had to hide, but they didn't know before
They
until
didn't
they ate the fruit, and then they became aware of that.
know. They brought, so through them disobeying, they brought about shame within their heart. Right. So they were naked before, right? But there was nothing wrong with being naked because you were blameless. But now you've brought blame upon yourself, so now you feel shame. And in your shame, you have the desire to cover yourself. It's
That actually, you know what? Now that I'm deeping it, it's kind of like I hope this is not weird, but it's kind of like when we're all kids, right? We don't really mind playing around just bare
Yeah.
in our birthday suits. And as you get older, like there's no reason for us to feel the way we feel, but you don't want to do that anymore. You just are like, whoa, I can't be running around like that. Okay, so I kind of see what you mean in that sense.
Hmm.
Okay, fair, fair. So these are like different explanations that I haven't heard before for this. But how about like the since you believe that it's like, because I think you can be a Christian and still like follow the idea of evolution and whatnot. But since you believe they're literal two people, so every single human is a descendant of those two.
Yeah, you could hold to that. There's some people that hold to, like, there was a view that there were some people outside of the garden, like God creates humanity in Genesis
Yeah, and
1:26,
whatnot.
and
Yeah.
then specific. So there's different views in regards to that.
Yeah, but what about for the like the flood repopulation, like the eight people making every like different, I don't know what would you call them, race? Yeah, every
Hmm.
different race. Like we have, I won't even list them, but you know what I mean. So this
Yeah.
eight people made all of the races that we have today.
Well, you could
When
hold.
in biology
Yeah, so
there
you
is
can
like
hold to a local flood. So, like, and you'll see that as you read, especially Genesis, that we're following a very specific line of people. After Adam, it says that these are the generations of Seth. These are the generations of Noah. Like, you're talking about a very specific people. So there most scholarship is going to hold that there was a local flood, not a global flood. When the Bible uses the word world, it's the word eretz in Hebrew, which just means the land. And like later on in the book of Genesis, where it says that Joseph fed the whole earth, it uses that same word, but I mean that word, but it's just talking about like the known world
the
or their
yeah the
land.
people in that scenario. Yeah, that's kind of what I went with. Like what like while I was still kind of in the faith. But yeah, I love the like the explanations and some of these things, but like unfortunately, like I'm at that point in my head where I can't see like the feasibility of like
God, the problem
any
solve R, has donated $20 and says, God
Jesus.
bless, bro. That interpretation was great. Where can I read up on it?
So you can read up on it on, let me answer this. I appreciate the donation, thank you. You could read up on it at on the literal meaning of St. Augustine, the literal meaning of Genesis, book 8, specifically chapter 6. I created the PDF for that book, that specifically that volume of the literal interpretation of Genesis, and I posted it on archive, so you should be able to get it for free. um but yeah, so that's the literal meaning of Genesis, book 8, chapter 6. You could read up on like that interpretation of specifically the tree of knowledge of good and evil. All of book 8 is really good on like Genesis. But go ahead.
that was super loud.
I'm so sorry.
Caught me off guard. I was like, "Whoa, what's going on with my phone?"
Yeah.
All right.
When people donate, it
Um,
like it says out there message.
no, but that's like well deserved right there because that was you were always spitting like actual deep knowledge that I can get to think about. But like I was just trying to mention, it's just whenever I think about it too deep, then I go into the whole thing of like, yeah, that but there's like all these other thousands of religions that are derived from each other, and if you are like understand theology to a degree, you can more or less like I don't, what's the word? Is it guess or yeah? You can make assumptions on what religion they would have had or what type of religion it would be, and you would be about 98% correct. You're almost always right, depending on where they, what happened and all that. And then when I look more into like the history behind the whole move with like the movement of the Israelites from Egypt through going 40 years in the desert, all that it doesn't add up. And then there's now the implication again. For me, it's always with implications. So God made the chosen people and didn't give them a land of their own. He had them go and expunge a different set of people that weren't the chosen ones so they can get that land. And the way that like I would put an analogy for that is like I have two kids and I give one kid a lollipop and I tell my other kid, hey, I bought you a lollipop, but you have to go and severely maim this other kid and then get the lollipop? Why not just give them both lollipops? Why make just one lollipop and have them both fight over it, causing the wars that we have now that's going on till this day? Like, you
Yeah.
know?
So it's uh because through Israel, God is like showing their his justice as well. So if you read like the Torah, you'll see that like it's God waits for like the Amalekites or the Canaanites and ever like the people of that land, they continue to sin after like he's calling out to them, he's preaching to them and everything like that. They continue in their sin. So through Israel, God brings judgment upon that nation. Um, and like he does that also as like a precursor to the Messiah of how he's going to bring salvation through Israel. So Israel is supposed to like show the goodness and justice of God, and then at times they fail. So then God brings his justice through other nations upon Israel. He judges them like physically as a precursor as well, so that when you understand the physical justice, that when God comes like in the flesh and he's preaching about this spiritual kingdom, you'll understand even greater this spiritual judgment that's going to come about when you continue in your disobedience. I'm going to paste the link here. Okay, perfect.
Hmm.
Uh,
I
um,
mean, I'm aware of the stories. I'm aware of like the justifications for the mass unaliving of population groups and all that. But like, so the plan from the beginning was to use them anyway, because if the Israelites had their own place in the beginning, because their whole thing is that they've just been displaced from one place to the other. If they had their own place in the beginning, then you wouldn't have to go through the whole thing of having to, you know, remove all these other people from their spots and put them there. This just implies that he knew and he made it in such a way that this is going to be how they get their land or they get their location.
it's
So
not
this is
about,
all stuff that,
yeah, it's not about just like having a place, right? Like it's not just about like the physical things that come about or them just having a place. It's about everything that comes through from that place. It's about the promise that was made like before they are inhabiting the land the way in which they're inhabiting the land. Um, it's about keeping those promises. It's about the character of God, like more than anything else. Um, So it's not just about, oh, like what land can they have? That's not what God's concerned about. Like it's about everything that comes forth from this land, that this land is going to be beneficial in bringing the Messiah, that from this point people are easily able, like one of the reasons could be um information is able to spread easy when the Messiah comes, because it's easy access to Africa, easy access to Asia, and easy access to Europe. It's like the middle point for all of these things. So like in this land, the Messiah is able to die and the news is able to spread to the most people. Um, like there's many different, it's not just like, oh, how can we get these people this land? It's not about that.
okay, that's fair. I mean, it's still kind of like iffy because like I would really like to go back to how I was like a few years ago where I actually was in it, but now it's like all I can do is just kind of wish that I can get back to that because each time it just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem plausible anymore, at least in my mind, because the spread of it is the same way that any religion would spread, and
That's
I
not true
try
at
like that's
all.
why I have to.
Yeah, that's not true.
I don't know
So like the
it,
way that Christianity spreads, like have you looked into the way Christianity spread for the first 300 years?
the first 300 years. There's was that missionary work more or less.
Mm-mm. Well, kind of. Not really though. It wasn't allowed.
What's the what's the difference? Like they would go to places, they get persecuted to shit, and then some new would spring up, which would go to other places, get persecuted to shit, and so on.
Yeah, so religions, like I'm assuming you're talking about like Islam, they spread by the sword, right? Christianity spread by being killed. Like Christians went around and everywhere they went, they were being persecuted. And their willingness to die increased the faith of the people who was killing them. So then they started to believe. And that went on for 300 years until finally an emperor had a dream and decided, after more research, to convert to Christianity and say, hey, as a matter of fact, we're going to make Christianity legal. But for the first 300 years, Christianity was illegal and still spread and became one of the biggest religions without any power, and instead just being servants all the way up until the point of death. That's how Christianity spread. There's no religion that spreads like that.
The Yeah, I don't think there's any religion that spreads like that. I also think that, well, because of the core tenets, like what is taught by Jesus himself, that's why people like are the way that they are, and it's possible for people to become a little bit of, zealots in their belief systems. And yeah, you're right. Like when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about like how the Islamic religion got spread. Definitely spread by them doing the murking.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other religions that spread, more or less in the same way. Because again, back in the day, like if we're talking around the time when Jesus was alive, or well, just that time, whichever nation you go into, any other religion is outlawed, right? So it's not just the Christians that were getting murked for their beliefs. There will be other ones as well. If you talk about it or if you even practice it, you're gonna get murked.
Yeah, so
It's
it's
just
but
that
it
over time.
no, well, that's not all the way true, right? So there are other religions that were outlawed, but Christianity was the religion that was enforced. It's kind of like, I don't know where you're from, but like in America, around the 1960s, they had like this welfare initiative where, in order to be on welfare, you had to not have a father within the home. Now, this rule applied to everyone, but the United States started doing welfare checks to make sure that there wasn't a father in the home, specifically in black neighborhoods. So the way in which this thing was enforced was in black neighborhoods, just like how this rule applied to like all other religions, but it was enforced predominantly on Christians. And you can see this in the letters that are written to like the emperors, as to they're asking for this persecution. They're asking what's the reason for this persecution when, hey, you have people over here who, believe whatever they believe, and you're not doing this to them, but it is happening to the Christians.
Yeah, but we can kind of like gather why that would be the case. Like Jesus himself, like if you are a Roman emperor and you have someone like Jesus going around, and like not directly, but he is challenging your authority. Like he is giving people this notion and this idea that they do not need this, like, localized government and whatnot. All of this doesn't actually matter. It takes away the control that the government can have on them. And you can say like, oh, but he says, I forget the verse, but something about like give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. I don't remember if
And
Jesus
give
said
to
that.
God what is
But
God's.
yeah, like you could say that, but he was challenging like the notion as it was at the time, and the Jews were playing a really big part in chastising him because the Jews didn't like him. Like majority of them were like, "Whoa," and they were the ones that even expedited like the whole, his whole like rise to glory and all that stuff. So you could point that other religions weren't really that much of an effect on the government, but Christianity as it is makes you not focused on, the physical and like, having to deal with your taxes and all of these things. You're doing other things that are more for your soul, more for your eternal life, and it takes away control from the government. So I can see why they would want to stop that, why that would give them more of a
Well,
reason
that's not
to
the account,
persecute them.
but that's not the account that we see. So like the reason as to why they persecute the Christians is because they refuse to call anybody else Lord other than Christ. That was the reason. It wasn't because, oh, like, taxes or any like government problem for real. they just refused to acknowledge anyone else as Lord. And they were killed for it. They were often given outs and said, hey, just say that Caesar is Lord and we'll let you go. And these people willingly walked to the burning of the stake, to being beheaded, because they were assured that Jesus had lived. And then later Christians were assured in their faith that Jesus lives. So they refused to say that Jesus was not Lord or anyone else was Lord. That's why they were killed. So it has nothing, it doesn't even have to do with the way that they lived. It's just who they believed in. They were good citizens. They fought for that. They fought for the abolition of slavery because they would sell themselves into slavery to free other slaves. That's what Christians were doing in the first centuries of Christianity.
The hmm, I don't know. Like I'm not disputing it, that like the whole Lord situation,
Well,
but
that's
in
what we
fact,
see
like
from like the earliest writings, the people who have been martyred. Like we have,
that seems like a oversimplification, right? Of it, like it's just say Lord, therefore live.
yeah.
It seems like if when people say like, oh, it's like when the in Nigeria, because I'm Nigerian, I'm not currently in Nigeria, but I'm Nigerian. Like when the Muslims doing what they're doing to the Nigerians, people try to simplify it to like, oh, just say you're Muslim and you'll be fine, but it wouldn't really work, right? Like they already have it out for you. So just saying that, oh, it's because they didn't say the word, like maybe for some, but I don't think that for the majority that's like the reason behind it. But maybe it's like after a while there's just this like internalized hate that has been passed down over time for this specific group. So it doesn't really
I mean,
matter what you do, you're gonna be persecuted.
we have letters from like Roman, like the hierarchy of Roman leaders that is talking about the persecution of Christians. And he's saying that it's because of like they refuse to acknowledge any other
Anyone?
lord.
Oh,
Like he's writing to another, like the emperor at the time, and he's saying that, hey, do I continue going on with the persecution of Christians because they don't acknowledge? Like he's asking for later moves as to what he's supposed to be doing. But he's acknowledging it. It's because that they don't call anybody else Lord but Christ.
right. Christians can be really in it. They can be really in it. But okay, I'm gonna look into like those letters and kind of see what that's like. I don't think I ever at a point was in my life where I was like really in it like that, where I would let myself unalive just to not say a word. Nah, no way. I can't see that. I can't rationalize it. But I'm very educative, very informative. A lot of things to Google, a lot of things to look up. I kind of
Yeah.
get into
Hmm.
because it's like only been about a year that I just can't find the like reality of the situation. I think it all started when I went to like this short rant. Just let me. I went to this service and everyone in the service was speaking in tongues, every single
Oh
person,
my
and
God.
I didn't. It just didn't feel right. Like it
Yeah, that's
felt
not right.
like
That's
that's
why.
not
Yeah, you were correct. That's
a
not right. They're
possibility.
not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, like that's not a possibility.
Yeah, bro.
Like
That's. I'm so sorry that that happened, man.
I stayed like for the youth sermon afterwards because I was like, okay, I need to figure out if this is like maybe I was just sitting next to the adults and this is just they're all like ruining their faith and whatnot. And in the youth sermon, there was like some 14-year-old that was called to lead like the opening prayers and stuff, and he was blasting tongues and stuff, and he was like, everyone begin to pray in that, and I was like, I don't think you can do that. Like that's not how that works. And I spoke to one of the ministers, and he said that no, everybody can do it. Like some people they convert today, they can do it tomorrow, and I'm like, what? How is that? And then it got me to really start deeping everything around it, and then I got to this point where I'm at. Like
Yeah.
I want to go to a like Catholic sermon and also an Orthodox sermon as well. Like I don't know what you call them, a mass, I think,
Yeah,
just to
mass
kind of see
for.
if I'm gonna feel like different or I'm gonna feel something because that's another thing. It's very experience based, right? Like you actually have to feel it to be in it. Like these people that got martyred, they felt something. Like
Mhm.
Paul definitely felt something, right? Like the light and the sounds, all that. I have, like, for this entire time have felt nothing. And it's not for a lack of trying, I can tell you that much. Like, my dad is a pastor, runs a church. My mom is also, pastor's wife type of thing. So I was raised in the faith, but in no instance have I felt anything.
Yeah.
And
Well, I could tell you
nothing can
this.
be done about it.
Yeah, I could tell you
So,
this.
like, what can
I
you
grew up in the church, and I I remember the first time where I felt like I actually had the gospel preached to me, um, especially in a way in which I could understand and that it was defendable. My life changed when I looked into the history of the resurrection of Jesus. I was going to become like Muslim or something because I was sure that God existed. And then my Muslim friend told me, hey, yeah, like we don't believe that Christ was crucified. And I was like, oh, like that's a historical claim. Now, like, let me look into the history of this. And I looked into the history of the crucifixion and then the history of the resurrection of Jesus. And I mean, I looked at the evidence and I was like, the evidence is overwhelming, really for me, that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And if Jesus rose from the dead, then Christianity is the most important thing ever. So my faith is backed by what the evidence puts forth. And that's what really
I
helped me feel was, oh my God, this is real. Like, it's not just stories. It's not just good music. It's real. It's historical. It happened. That's what helped me feel.
yeah,
And you seem more intellectually
the
inclined.
music is
So maybe that might be something. Look into the evidence. Christianity is never a religion. It was not
I
supposed to be a
have
religion that shies away from questions and looking into evidence and critics. It's the most criticized religion. The Bible is the most criticized book, like critically, like scholarly. Like,
okay. I have actually looked into the evidence for the death, unaliving, and the resurrection. For the unaliving, that one I can, like, I wouldn't even dispute it. If anyone mentions, yeah, he did get put on a cross. All that stuff happened. But the resurrection, that's like, because that's the main part. That's the part that matters the most.
yeah,
Like, it's like, a magician's act. You can make stuff disappear, but you got to make it come back. That's the main thing. I I don't know what you mean when you say it's overwhelming evidence for the resurrection, because what we have is accounts of his disciples or apostles that have every reason to make it up, and Paul. And Paul wasn't even there. Paul just mentions that, yeah, no, he showed up over 500 people. Who told him that? How does he know that? Where is he getting that from? And the disciples have every reason to make that up. So there's no actual, like, outside biblical evidence of him turning up again. That's my main thing.
Wait, just really quick, like you said that they would have every reason to like have lied about it. What do you think those reasons would be?
Well, they need to keep pushing the narrative, right? That he is
But
the
why?
Messiah, and
But why?
to spread the religion that he's trying to spread.
Okay,
I
but
think that
you have
the
to keep in
message
mind
is
that
good.
prior to the crucifixion, like Christ told the apostles that he was going to rise from the dead. And
Right.
then assuming that they lied, that would mean he didn't rise from the dead. So that would mean that Christ just lied to them, and then they're just gonna like go all in and support the religion even knowing it's false. Why would they do that?
Again, you know that Christ said that to them because they wrote that down, right? So, like, I'm implying that they could have made this all up. They could have added that in. Like, Christ could have been, saying a lot of stuff, but because they want to push it further, they could have just added that, yeah, he said he'll come back, and then make him come back.
Okay,
Because
well,
there's some instances. Yeah.
if we're just going to call into question everything that was said by the apostles, then I don't even know how we're getting here. But either way, like you still have to deal with the fact that they're being persecuted for starting this religion. So why would they want to start a religion if all they're getting from it is persecution?
Well, I mean, it's not really far-fetched that people that really believe something strongly will
But they don't
get
believe it
persecuted.
on this view. You're saying that they lied.
Well, then I wouldn't use believe. They're perpetrating this particular view, because my rationale, like, for this is when he showed up in the Gospels. I'm not sure which one of it. They didn't believe it at first. They didn't believe it at first. They were like, "Nah, he didn't actually get up.
so
There's no way."
yeah, exactly.
And then
So
and
that's the
then
thing
they
that,
actually.
but that you have to understand that that's the thing that you have to account for, right? So you understand from the evidence that there was some interaction where his disciples believed that they saw him risen from the dead. Like after he was dead, for some
Yes.
reason, his
Yes.
disciples thought that they saw him.
Not that he was. Yes.
Yeah. Now, them lying doesn't work, as like we just pointed out, because as you said that you've never felt like anything that you wouldn't go to death for it, even if you believed it to be, like you wouldn't go to death for it. So people don't go to death for something that they know to be a lie, right? Especially numerous people. 11 out of the 12 disciples were like killed in awful ways, and none of them recanted. So at the very least, we can say that we know that they truly believed that they saw him risen. At least they believed it. Now, what accounts for that belief? What accounts for the fact that his enemies as well, who didn't believe him while he was alive, say that they saw him and then change and then die for saying that they saw him. So they really believed that they saw him as well. And then on top of that, the tomb is empty. Now we need to take all of these facts that we know that he was dead. We know that his disciples really believed that they saw him after he was dead. We know that his enemies also really believed that they had some interaction with him after he was dead. And we know that the tomb is empty. Now, what best accounts for all of those facts is the question that you have to answer.
Right, but all of these facts are coming from one source. If there was
No.
another,
That's not true.
No, that's not true. So when like the Bible is an accumulation of many different sources written by many different authors, but it's not just them, right? You have like the testimony of Flavianum and Josephus, right? Who's saying pretty much the same thing that I'm saying. Josephus is a Jewish historian that's recounting pretty much what happens leading up to the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. He's like close. His right-hand man is some of the people who was on the council that condemned Jesus to death. Like he's getting this information from people who are enemies of Christ, right? He says the same thing. Oh, Christ was crucified. His disciples believed that they saw him 3 days after. Like he's saying that the same thing that I'm saying. So you have the testimony of Mark, you have the testimony of Matthew, you have the testimony of Luke, you have the testimony of John, you have the testimony of Paul, you have the testimony of Peter. Those are all individual sources that have been compiled, and we as Christians regard them as scripture. As historians who are not Christians, they still regard them as historical testimony. They're still first century documents. So they still take those things into account, which is why what I'm giving you is what's called the minimal facts argument, because you do have multiple testimonies attesting to these things. Whether you regard them as scripture or not, that's up to you. I regard them as scripture because I'm Christian. You don't have to regard them as scripture. There still be first century documents that are testifying to an event. So you have multiple different documents by multiple individual authors, some who are witnesses. I claim to be eyewitnesses of these events. So you have to, all of that is in account. And you have to answer, okay, we know that he was dead. We know that they believe that they saw him. We know that his enemies believe that they saw him, and the tomb is empty. Now, what best accounts for this? I would say that the thing that best accounts for all the evidence is the resurrection. I think every other hypothesis that I've seen, it falls short of at least answering one of the minimal facts, if not two or more.
like, fair argument. I'm not even sure how I would even respond to that. Like, yes, they all did get brutally martyred for their idea. I'm calling it an idea because I still don't think that he actually got up. What's his name? Thomas had to like see and feel the holes in his hand to believe it. I mean, he said that, but then he actually just seeing it was enough for him.
No,
And we're
he came
supposed
and
to
saw it.
just-
He came and touched.
Well, he didn't want to. I think he like fell at the feet and whatnot. But it doesn't
No,
matter. That's not the point. The point
after
is-
he touched, after it was confirmed. Because remember, Thomas says, "I will not believe unless I put my whole." Yeah. So
My
him
hand-
just
yeah,
seeing was not going to be enough. After he sees, he feels bad for his lack of faith. After he touches, he feels bad for his lack of faith. Then he falls and proclaims Christ to be God as he is.
But that's the thing, right? So Thomas knew Jesus when he was alive, and he needed to touch the hole to believe it. I don't know him as far as I can throw a rock, you know, like I know about him,
Yeah.
but I don't know him.
Yeah.
And I'm expected to have greater faith than Thomas did
Yeah.
because the other people that mattered for it.
I
That expectation, like, is
no,
a little bit too high for me.
I look, that's fair. I understand that. I think that we do have access to a little bit more information. I'm not going to say that you could have more certainty than Thomas did, right? But you are looking. So for Thomas, that's his present, right? That's right now. He's able to go and actually touch Jesus. That's what's available to him. That's in the now, right? Now it would be like you live in America now,
No, I'm in South Africa right now.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, it would be like people telling stories about Nelson Mandela, right? And Nelson Mandela is gone, so all we have is their historical accounts. Now there were people who were there with them who had the pleasure to be there and touch him and experience him in the present, right? That's what they have access to. But now what you have to go off of is their testimony and the things that has been passed down. So the evidence that we have now is you know the testimonies of these people who have seen him. They're really in depth. The people who were enemies, which are pretty in depth, as well as like the people who come after, who aren't contemporaries but are just writing history, either Roman history or Jewish history, whatever the case may be. They're writing about these events. Now, as a historian or as somebody who's looking into history, it's your job to take the evidence that you have and figure out a conclusion based on the evidence that you have. Now, we have an overwhelming amount of evidence regarding the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So the question is still going to stand as to what best explains the evidence that we have. The evidence that we have is concrete. Now, what explains this evidence? And I would say it's the resurrection. So either way it goes, you're still going to have to answer what explains it. And whenever you do, just try to make sure you don't skip out on any facts. Scrutinize every hypothesis that you put forward. If you say that they were lying, well, like exactly how Cam did. Why would they lie? What incentives did they have? Do people die for a lie? Why would the enemies lie as well if they were already against Christ? Things like that. Like scrutinize every single, hypothesis. Were they hallucinating? How does that explain the empty tomb?
Mass hallucinations. I don't know about that one. The tomb, again, like you said, you put it all together, it kind of like works, but individually you can kind of pick them apart.
Yeah, exactly. But it's about all
together.
together. That's the thing. It's about explaining all the evidence. So I mean, there's a good book. There's a good book like going into the evidence called "A Case for the Resurrection of Jesus" by Matthew Lacona and Gary Habermas. I would suggest it. But there's
Does
many.
it have an audiobook version?
It does. Or at
Okay.
least I listen to it on audio. So if you like audiobooks, as a matter of fact, if you like audiobooks, this is the letter that I was talking about. It's by Pliny the Younger. Book 10, letter 96. That's what's the name? So I have this, right? It's called Natural Readers. But I do pay for this. So it's called Natural Reader AI. You could download the app on your phone as well. And any PDF that I put in here, it'll read it to me in this dude's voice.
Welcome to Natural Reader
Oh, you
AI.
can't
Yeah,
hear it.
I ain't paying for nothing. I'm just gonna make mine. I'm a developer, so I'll just make mine. It's
Oh,
free
that's
over here.
hard. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
The
Shout out to
the
you. Shoot.
my question now, like I'm loving all of these answers. Actually, it's really helping a lot, like piecing things together. Who knows? I might go back to actually praying. Maybe one of these days. See if
Amen,
I'm
bro.
gonna
I'll pray for that for you.
get a hear back from
From the man
the big man.
upstairs. Yeah.
But the wife doesn't like me saying that. Like, man upstairs, like,
Yeah.
this guy, yeah, what? But my thing is, so what's your thoughts on like what actually goes on in heaven, like based on biblical descriptions? Because I'm still not entirely certain. When I think about what you have to do, like giving up a lot of things on earth to be someone that is, righteous. what, like, and then the reward is you end up with God and the love and all that. What actually is that? Is it the way I'm thinking, where you're singing His praises forever and ever in a white robe, just chilling up there? Are you still who you are? Like, you remember the people that didn't make it. You have relationships. Like, like, what do you think happens in heaven?
Yeah, it's something that like we've never experienced, nor can we like really conceive. So it's like participating in that which is truly good, but you delight in it. So like right now, that which is good hurts us. Like it hurts our flesh. Like when I fast, when I try not to act out in lust, when I try to practice patience, all of that it hurts, right? I get annoyed, I get irritable, I get angry or whatever when I'm practicing these virtues, but I'm participating in goodness, but it hurts me. Now, try to imagine a world in which you're participating in that which is truly good and you love it. Like you've never participated in that which is truly good. Um and that's what heaven is participating in that which is truly good. So like it's hard to explain and it's hard to conceive, but after like at the end of time, God's gonna create a new heaven and new earth, because the goal is still for like the material world to be united to the immaterial, for us as material beings to be united to Him who is immaterial. So He's going to create a new heaven and new earth with those who have aligned their will towards Him, who always choose good out of their free will. So like in heaven right now, there's things that go on. Like there's, I guess you could say like politics or whatever. Like angels have a job, they have a role, they do things. But for us, when we go to heaven, we're able to participate, we're able to aid, like those who are here.
Do the angels also have the same, like, the same feeling, like you're describing, where they they enjoy the good that they're participating in? Because what comes to mind is like, okay, they were still able to be deceived by Satan, and
Well, they're
the
not
bulk
deceived.
majority of the angels.
Yeah, so the angels aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, the angels weren't deceived. So angels, they aren't limited by like uh any physicality. They're like immaterial beings as well. So their intellect, they're kind of like pure intellect. They're like really, really smart, especially in the fields in which they're in. So they know full and well the consequences of all their actions. And because of their lack of limitation, that's why like Satan can't repent, because he makes a decision knowing the consequence and decides to go. Whereas human beings, we are limited in our intellect. We are limited and we're able to be tempted and swayed to do that which is not good. So there is repentance that is available unto us. But for angels, no, they knew full well the consequences of their actions. So there's no repentance for them.
Like, they knew full well and still chose that road.
Yeah.
Suspicious activity. But then also, like, the bulk of the angels that got sent down to earth for any job, I guess, except like the messengers, the watcher angels, I think this is during the
Like,
Noah flood.
mhm.
They pulled up and then decided to mate with humans.
Mhm.
Why? Couldn't tell you. Aren't they satisfied with the way that they are? Why do they need more? And will the humans that make it to heaven have the same capability, possibility?
Yeah. So it gets into a lot of angelology. So St. Thomas Aquinas,
Angelology? Is that a real word?
yeah, like the study of angels.
Angelology. Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Yeah.
Pulling that.
Like, bro, these, dude, the people, like Christianity has so much literature, it's ridiculous. I'm not too well versed in angelology, like the study of angels. I'm not too well versed. I haven't read a lot on it. But in regards to us, when we die, our wills are like, they're like fixed. So if you desire that which is God, um, when you die, you're kind of fixed towards that. So sin or going against God, it's like not really, it's not a thing that you would do. Like you seem like an upstanding guy. You would never, you would never assault like a woman, right?
Ain't no way.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's not, your will is not inclined towards such an evil action, right? So now like when you're aligned towards God, your will continues going towards that which is good. But God's goodness is infinite. So you're infinitely inclined towards the good, and you kind of just get better and better. So like you never make a decision the same way that you would never make a decision to assault a woman. You would never make a decision to go against that which is good. It's like not even something that would cross your mind because of what you're willed towards. So it's not that you're incapable of assaulting a woman, but you are incapable of assaulting a woman because it goes against who you are.
Yeah, no, I get that. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like the example you made makes perfect sense. Like right now, I am capable of unaliving a person,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm not,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't do that. That's never something that's gonna. Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Because that's something I was thinking about. Like, wouldn't you just, like, if you miss someone that didn't make it, and then you're like resentful towards God for like not setting it up that they can make it, but that's not even gonna be something that you even are like, what? That wouldn't, you wouldn't think about it like, oh,
Exactly.
that's wild.
Yeah.
I see, I see. But for me, like, I'm mostly indifferent when it comes to like faith and stuff. I let people believe what they want, and I'm over here cooked, not able to, but hopefully I can. But like, will I be locked indifferent, or am I just gonna, like? I wonder how that's gonna be. But it's not for you to answer. It's just me, like, kind of airing out my thoughts.
Yeah,
Okay,
no. I mean, I think
that sounds.
you're doing a really, really good job at asking questions and seeking. I truly do believe that if you continue to seek the Lord, you might not get the audible voice that you hear, but maybe you get the time. I usually don't go live this late. Like maybe you get a time to which one of God's children, not saying that, I'm blessed enough to be one of them,
Nah,
but
like it could be anybody. You know,
but yeah,
that's
like
the thing. Like,
as you continue seeking, I do believe that God will reveal himself to you in a way in which you could hear. It might not be the audible voice from the heavens. So just be, open to hearing wherever God
I
may
don't
speak.
think I'm gonna hear. I don't think I'm gonna hear a voice. Like my whole life, like I've been very critical of everything, even my own actions and my own thoughts. So it'll have to be something more concrete, more than just someone giving me a call and telling me that God said something to them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure He knows what'll convince me and what will like sway me back over. But it's like, of all of them, right? I've not only looked into Christianity, like in this year, I've actually looked into a lot of different ones to kind of like understand it.
Hmm.
And I'm at a point where I'm like, damn, I don't know how the whole world isn't Buddhist. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Everyone should just be Buddhist.
Hmm.
But the Christian, like, idea, the Christian faith, I should say, not an idea, it's the one that just somehow, some way makes the most, like, it feels the best
Hmm.
and makes the most like sense. Like, I don't know how to describe that. So it's kind of hard like to knock it down. Like I can point out like, oh yeah, some of these stories didn't really work, didn't make sense, and you could easily explain that away. Like, yeah, you could be allegorical, but it wouldn't change the core message and the core concept.
Yeah.
But the main part of it is the part that I struggle with the most, because even just normally, like, I don't really have a full range of all the emotions. You know, like how people
Hmm.
can love deeply, hate deeply, and whatnot. It's all pretty shallow for me.
Yeah.
I have like just enough to get by.
Yeah.
So expecting like a deep love for a divine being that I can't actually like see, like it's a lot of out of sight, out of mind for me. Like
Yeah.
if you're an extended family, sorry, I don't know who you are if I'm not there.
Yeah.
But when I'm there, then I feel it. So expecting to like be in it when I don't feel, it's kind of hard. And I
Yeah. It's
I just think about like, if I'm feeling this way, there's probably millions of people that feel the same. And if God forbid, see,
I
God
think
forbid,
that
if I'm outside and the bus like runs me over, I'm
yeah.
just cooked because I'm not able to, like
I think that there was so I'm kind of the same way where like I I don't have a plethora of emotions. Um and I think what you said in regards to out of sight, out of mind was actually probably a lot deeper than you intended to be, pause. Um,
yo.
but because a lot of times we don't have this love for God because we don't see that which He does. And I remember for me, in recognizing who I am, like as a sinner, and how much he does for me. It wasn't until I was able to recognize that which I took for granted, how much he loved me. And that's the thing that stands out to me in regards to Christianity versus like Islam, for example, is that in Islam, in the Quran, you get this idea that God will love you if you love him. And in Christianity, we're compelled to love God because he loved us first. And that's very, very different from even what you see from the ancient gods. Like the covenant that God makes with David, he doesn't ask David for anything. Like David wants to build a temple and he's like, no, but instead I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to make you a dynasty. And then I remember looking into the history for these things. And in that culture, all the other gods, they did like a favor for a favor. It's like if you built them a temple, then they would make you into like a dynasty. And God declines this temple and says, because of your faith, or like just because of who I am, I'm going to make you into a dynasty. Um, we're taught to love in the way in which God loves us, but that requires us to see the things that he does. And in order to see the things that he does, you have to be able to see the ways in which he acts on a daily basis. Like when he wakes you up and you see the beauty of like the birds in the sky, and it's like, dude, he feeds them. That's the thing that like you learn in the book of Job when he's going through all his troubles and stuff, and God shows all the things that Job has no idea about, like keeping the oceans at bay, or the like keeping the universe together. Like Job has no idea how any of that stuff works, but he trusts that the sun is going to rise in the morning, or that he's not going to be flooded in the morning, or whatever the case may be. He's trusting God with all those other things. But when we come over these minor inconveniences or major inconveniences in our lives, all of a sudden we don't trust God. But Job didn't see how God operates in every other aspect of his life. And I think that what you said, like out of sight, out of mind, is a big thing. So I would just pray that you learn to see God in your everyday life, the way in which he acts and provides in your everyday life. I think then you'll be able to see how much he loves you, and then you'll be more compelled to love him. So I would be praying that for you, I'll say.
Yeah, I think it's a really like deep and insightful like answer, but this is how I know that I actually am just cooked. Is that as you're saying that, my brain is just going, well, now we know why the sun rises in the day from science. We understand that, the Earth's rotating and the sun's also rotating. We know why the waters stay where they are. It's the moon and the tides. Like my
Yeah,
mind
it's
is going
about
off like, but there's all these scientific like explanations for this. So like, why would it? It's when
yeah,
we
no,
don't
it's
know,
a
then we say God, right?
so like if I give an argument for the existence of God, like just a philosophical argument for the existence of God, it's going to get to this being that is purely actual, that actualizes all that which is right now. So pretty much that which sustains everything that is. So for example, like my mic is sitting, 3 feet above the ground. That's being sustained or actualized right now by my desk. It is the desk that is causing it to be the way in which it is. Now it could be different. My mic could be on the floor if it weren't for the desk, right? So for God, God is going to be the being that sustains all of existence. So yeah, we can have the how the earth or the sun rotates around the earth, or the tides stay at bay, but the one who sustains those things is going to be this purely actual being, which is going to be God. um
Yeah, so that's where you and I agree like 100%. I believe that like yeah, the Big Bang and all that, that's cool, but there has to be something greater, right? There's like a greater instance. I just don't know if that greater entity is personal to every single person.
mhm,
Like if God, do it air quotes, like, so like let's, like, I'm defining God as like what's holding it all together, right? Like
mhm.
sustaining all of it, is doing all of that, and it also has a personality, like the way that we would imagine a person to be, where they care about your individual actions, and they care about your, like, soul per se, and they speak to you and they're there for you, and not just the existence of things as a whole. Like, why a personal agentic force? Why not just a force? Like, gravity exists. Gravity is not talking to anybody. It's there. Like, it just is, you know?
Yeah,
Why isn't that the same for God? Like,
because so there's a couple of reasons. So one, gravity isn't like it's not like causal. So this purely actual being is going to have like actual causal power. But two, there's a couple things. So like you have a principle in philosophy. I'm sorry, called the principle of proportionate causality, which is pretty much just saying that whatever is in the effect must in some way be in the cause. So like if I cause something, I have the power to bring about that which I affect. Um, like a match is able to bring about a fire because it has those properties within the cause. So you
mhm.
can make a simple argument, like if you have beings with intellect, like human beings, um, you have beings with intellect like human beings, then that which causes human beings has to have that causal ability. I mean, you have beings with intellect like human beings. My fault. I've been live for 4 hours. Uh, Whatever causes human beings like would have to have like some type of intellect or um whatever the case may be. It must have to be contained within the cause of whatever created human beings. So that's a simple argument. You have a deeper argument in regards to like everything that exists has to exist within this cause in some way. It can't exist materially or within potential. So it has to exist immanently. The things that exist or the forms that exist would have to exist in it the way abstract things exist, which would be within a mind. Therefore, this being has a mind, pretty much. Um,
Okay. I like the first one, like the principle of proportionate causality.
both of them hinge
That
off
makes,
principle of proportional causality. The first one is a little bit easier.
yeah, no, it works on my brain at this time. I've been up all night. It's like 7 a.m.
Oh my
So I'm
days.
gonna have to like kind of wrap it up so I can actually get some shut eye.
Yeah.
But thank you, man, for actually like kind of putting in the time and answering, not giving one word responses and stuff. I know it's late for you too, but I really do appreciate that. Like I try to hop on as much as I can and not be combative because I've gone through the whole phase. Like early days, I'm trying to make everyone an atheist, and then realize actually no, I'm not atheist. I'm agnostic, and then actually wait a second, I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
What's actually happening? I've gone through the whole thing, and now it's more just okay. Let me really get each person's perspective, and it just like you look young, right? So you look like you may be in like your mid 20s, early 20s,
Hmm.
but you are aware of the like explanations for different things biblically, right? So you can explain more or less everything I've asked if there's been an answer, and then you also understand some like what's the word? It's not psychology, philosophy. There we go. Some philosophy stuff as well. So, like, it's always nice to speak to people like that, but I wonder, how do you know all this stuff?
Reading,
So you
reading.
just read this particular field? Because, like, if we're talking about like tech and stuff, I can sound like an actual geek. But like, do you have other stuff that you do as well?
I mean, I pray, uh, but I read. Like we have, like Christianity is so rich. Like each thing that you've asked me has been another thing that I've had the pleasure to read. Uh, so like when we were talking about Genesis, bringing up Saint Augustine. When we're talking about other things, I could bring up another saint, or I get this explanation from another saint. We bring up Saint Thomas Aquinas, right? Um, these are all different fields that I have to read because it is my job as a Christian to provide the reason for my faith if anyone ever asks a question. So I take it serious that when I come up here, I plan to be prepared, at least to the best of my ability at this point, to prayerfully provide an answer because, a person like you, an honest person like you, could come across that is genuinely seeking questions and seeking answers into Christianity. And my ignorance on the matter and my attitude or whatever can stray you away from Christianity. I never want that to happen. Um, so I read. I wake up in the morning, I try to read. I have friends that encourage me to read, that help me read and help me understand. Because it's a lot of different fields. Like we're talking about angels, we're talking about the fall, we're talking about
Yeah, like
nature. It's
it's a
like,
lot of stuff.
yeah,
When I learn a new word, angelology, like I have
yeah.
that pulled up on.
And
I have like
there's
15 tabs open.
yeah, there's like thousands of pages of stuff on angelology. That's what I'm saying. Like I haven't even gotten into that. I'm, learning this stuff over here. And then as you learn this stuff over here, it's like there's a word that's mentioned, just like how in this conversation, that brings you over to this whole other field. And now you have to,
Yeah, there's new field and stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's how, but that is it for me. Like it's reading the church fathers, reading the church and, philosophy, but trying to be prepared because we are representatives of God and we want people to become Christian. So like you really do. You try to be prepared to present the gospel.
Well, I think that the sheer depth of it, there's no other religion with this much depth.
I agree.
Like there's so much to it. There's so much, and then we don't even go into like the actual languages a lot of these texts are written,
Yeah.
and the way that the authors intend to write stuff and all that. Like it's so rich. It's way too rich. Like no one ever like knows.
Yeah.
So that's wild. But yeah, before I wrap up, Cam, I know, okay, I know there's a study tool. Calm down. Relax.
he's
Right?
he's saying
Calm
that to
down.
he's saying that to me. He's saying that to me. 'Cause that's a joke that
I'm
me and him have.
good. It's all good. I felt a little bit of a slight there, so I was just gonna be like,
No, no,
"Whoa,
no. He's
relax."
saying it to me. There's a joke between me and him for real. Like,
Okay,
yeah. It's
okay.
an inside joke.
We Gucci then in that case.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you have a blessed night. Wonderful night. I'm gonna have breakfast and wrap it up before I
Amen,
actually
bro.
get into it.
Do you mind if I
Yeah,
ask you your name?
Daniel.
Daniel? I'll be praying for you.
My name is Daniel Isaac, and then one more. It's like fully biblical.
But do you mind if we just pray for like 15 seconds before we go? Because I'm gonna close it out too, bro.
I get a little awkward, so I'm just gonna be quiet and you can
No,
pray.
yeah, of course. No, yeah, that's fine. I'll just if you want to, like, if you mind me praying with you or not. Um, if
I'm
you
not gonna say
mind,
no to a prayer. You
all
kidding
right, for sure.
me?
Well, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for this time that we was able to have together. Thank you for the platform. Thank you for the internet staying alive as we're talking to friends across the world. I just thank you for the ability for us to be able to have this conversation, to be able to talk. I pray that things will sit on both of our hearts as well as the people in the live, Lord. I ask that you please open us both up to the ways in which you want us to live, Lord. I ask that we just go from this day forward, just trying to seek you more, trying to live in a way in which you're calling us and to be the people in which you desire us to be, Lord. Allow us all to lead with love, to speak with patience and with kindness, and to endure unto the end. Allow us to keep seeking truth and to guide us closer to you, Lord. I pray this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the blessed Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much,
Amen,
Daniel.
bud.
Nice to meet you. I'll be praying for you. I
Nice
pray
to
that
meet
you
you
come on
too.
over to prayer. But just keep looking, keep seeking, bro.
Yeah, man.
I love it,
I'm gonna
man.
drop a follow so I don't miss the next live because this. I sat through the other guy. I think there was a guy before the one before me. I think it was a Muslim brother that
Yeah,
was begging to be insulted.
yeah,
Where I was like, what, what the
yeah,
heck's going on? And
yeah.
then like okay, I heard your debate with the other dude about like macro and micro evolution. I was like, okay, I can actually speak here. And
Hmm.
then that's when the requests and whatnot. But yeah, no, if my youth group was like you guys, I wouldn't have thought about it too much. I'm not hearing tongues blasted on TikTok live with like 10
Yeah.
people, all of them doing that. No. But all right, yeah, I can
Thank you
keep
so
yapping for
much,
hours,
man.
but I need to actually
God
sleep. But
bless you. Get
cheers,
some
man.
breakfast,
Cheers. Thank you.
man. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that is a 4 hour live. I am gonna have to start going live later, starting like the 17th. I think it's gonna be like my first day of my second job. Um, so I'm gonna have to start going live later. I don't get off until 3 o'clock my time. Um, so that's gonna be my schedule. But up until then, shout out to my fiance.